A black athlete named Jaden was ignored by scouts at tryouts, overlooked and left unseen. But Jaden never gave up, and today, he's the face of their national campaign, proving everyone wrong. The same people who dismissed him because of his color are now begging for him to join their team. How did Jaden turn the tables and rise to the top? Before we get into the story, comment below where in the world you are watching from today. And if you like this story, don't forget to subscribe. Jaden's heart raced as he stepped onto the shiny basketball court. The squeak of sneakers and the thud of bouncing balls filled the air. He took a deep breath, his eyes sparkling with excitement. This was his chance to show what he could do. At just 10 years old, Jaden already had a deep love for basketball. He'd spent countless hours practicing in his driveway, perfecting his shots and moves. Now, he was finally at the tryouts for the prestigious youth team he'd dreamed about joining. Jaden's fingers tingled as he picked up a basketball. Its rough surface felt familiar and comforting. He started dribbling, the ball an extension of his hand. Left, right between his legs. The moves came naturally to him. "All right, everyone, let's see what you've got," the coach called out. Jaden's face lit up. This was his moment. He dashed across the court, weaving between other kids. His speed was impressive, his movements fluid. When he reached the hoop, he leapt, the ball soaring from his fingertips. It arced through the air and swished through the net. A warm feeling of pride spread through Jaden's chest. He'd been practicing that shot for weeks. As he jogged back to the line, he caught the coach's eye. The man gave a small nod, and Jaden's heart soared. Throughout the tryout, Jaden gave it his all. He showed off his quick thinking, making smart passes and finding open teammates. His shooting was on point, and his defense was solid. With every play, his love for the game shone through. As he played, Jaden allowed himself to dream. He imagined himself as a star player, leading his team to victory. He pictured himself making game-winning shots and lifting trophies high above his head. These dreams fueled him, pushing him to play even harder. When the coach blew the final whistle, Jaden was breathless but beaming. He'd done his best, and it felt good. As he walked off the court, wiping sweat from his brow, he couldn't help but feel hopeful. Maybe, just maybe, this was the start of something big. As the tryout continued, Jaden's natural talent shone through. His sneakers squeaked against the polished floor as he darted across the court, leaving other players in his wake. His speed was remarkable, his movements fluid and purposeful. During the dribbling drills, Jaden's control over the ball was impeccable. He weaved through the obstacle course of cones with ease, never once losing his grip on the ball. His crossovers were sharp and precise, drawing a few impressed murmurs from onlookers. When it came time for passing drills, Jaden's quick thinking and court vision stood out. He always seemed to find the open player, making crisp, accurate passes that hit his teammates right in the hands. His ability to read the court was well beyond his years. As the tryout progressed, Jaden's confidence grew. He was in his element, doing what he loved most. The joy of playing basketball radiated from his face, even as beads of sweat trickled down his forehead. However, as Jaden glanced towards the sidelines between drills, he noticed something that made his heart sink a little. The coaches and white scouts, clipboards in hand, seemed to be paying more attention to the white athletes. Their eyes followed these players more closely, their pens scribbling notes more frequently. Jaden watched as a white player fumbled the ball during a layup drill, nearly tripping over his own feet. To his surprise, one of the scouts leaned in to whisper something to a coach, both nodding with interest. Jaden frowned, confused. He had just executed the same drill flawlessly, but had received no such attention. Jaden tried to shake off his growing unease. He told himself to focus on the game, on doing his best. But he couldn't help noticing how the coach's eyes seemed to slide past him, even as he made impressive plays on the court. Despite this, Jaden refused to let it affect his performance. He played with all his heart, determined to prove himself through his actions. He stole the ball from opponents, made precise passes to his teammates, and sank shot after shot. His natural leadership emerged as he called out plays and encouraged his teammates. As the tryout came to an end, the players gathered around the coaches and scouts, their faces flushed with exertion and anticipation. Jaden's heart raced as he stood among his peers, his chest rising and falling rapidly from the intense workout. He wiped the sweat from his brow with the back of his hand, his eyes fixed on the clipboard one of the white scouts held. The head coach cleared his throat, silencing the murmurs of excited chatter. "All right, boys," he announced, his voice carrying across the gym. "We've made our decisions. When I call your name, please step forward." Jaden held his breath, his fingers crossed tightly behind his back. He had given his all during the tryout, showcasing skills that had impressed even himself. Surely they had noticed his talent, his dedication, his love for the game. One by one, names were called out. With each name that wasn't his, Jaden's hope began to waver. His eyes darted nervously between the coaches and the dwindling group of players around him. Then the final name was announced. And lastly, Tommy Johnson. Jaden's heart sank as he watched a white player step forward. Tommy, who had fumbled multiple times during the drills and barely made any baskets during the scrimmage, now stood proudly with the selected group. Confusion washed over Jaden like a cold wave. He blinked rapidly, trying to make sense of what had just happened. How could Tommy be chosen over him? He had outperformed Tommy in every aspect of the game. As the reality of the situation sank in, Jaden felt a crushing weight on his chest. He hadn't made the team. Despite his standout performance, his speed, his agility, his passion, none of it had been enough. Jaden's eyes stung with unshed tears as he looked around at the chosen players. All of them were white. The painful truth hit him like a punch to the gut. This wasn't about skill or talent. This was about something he couldn't control: the color of his skin. Jaden trudged home, his basketball tucked under his arm and his head hanging low. The weight of disappointment dragged at his steps, making the familiar walk feel longer than ever before. As he approached his house, he saw his parents waiting on the porch, their faces etched with concern. "Hey, champ," his father called out, his voice gentle. "How'd it go?" Jaden couldn't find the words. He shook his head, his lower lip trembling as he climbed the porch steps. His mother immediately wrapped him in a warm embrace, and that's when the tears he'd been holding back finally spilled over. "Oh, sweetheart," his mother soothed, rubbing his back. "It's okay. Let it out." They moved inside, settling on the living room couch. Jaden's father sat beside him, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. "Want to talk about it, son?" Between sniffles, Jaden recounted the events of the tryout. His voice quivered as he described how he'd played his heart out, only to be passed over for less skilled players. "I don't understand," he finished, wiping his eyes. "Why wasn't I good enough?" His parents exchanged a look, their eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and understanding. His father took a deep breath. "Jaden, sometimes in life things aren't fair. People can be judged by things they can't control, like the color of their skin." Jaden's brow furrowed. "But that's not right," he protested. "No, it's not," his mother agreed, her voice soft but firm. "But it's a reality we sometimes face. What matters is how we respond to it." His father nodded. "You can't control how others see you, son, but you can control how hard you work and how you carry yourself." Jaden struggled to process this. It felt so unfair, so wrong. "So what do I do now?" he asked, his voice small. His father squeezed his shoulder. "You keep practicing, you keep getting better. Don't let this setback stop you from loving the game or believing in yourself." The next day, the sun had barely peeked over the horizon when Jaden's alarm blared. He rubbed the sleep from his eyes, his mind already focused on the day ahead. The sting of rejection still burned in his chest, but it had kindled a new fire within him. Quietly, so as not to wake his parents, Jaden slipped out of bed and into his basketball shorts and sneakers. He grabbed his well-worn ball and headed out the door, the cool morning air nipping at his skin. The local basketball court was empty at this early hour, just as Jaden liked it. The silence allowed him to focus, to channel all his energy into improving. He started with dribbling drills, the rhythmic bounce of the ball echoing across the empty court. Left hand, right hand, crossover. Jaden's movements were precise, each dribble a defiant statement against those who had overlooked him. He pushed himself harder, faster, until his arms ached and sweat beaded on his forehead. Next came shooting practice. Jaden positioned himself at various spots around the court, his eyes locked on the hoop. Shot after shot, he worked on his form, on his accuracy. Some shots swished through the net perfectly, others bounced off the rim. But Jaden didn't let the misses discourage him. Each one was just another opportunity to get better. As the sun climbed higher in the sky, Jaden moved on to running drills. He sprinted back and forth across the court, pushing his legs to carry him faster with each pass. His lungs burned, but he didn't stop. In his mind, he could see the scouts, their eyes passing over him. It only made him run harder. Day after day, Jaden returned to the court. Sometimes other kids would show up to play, but Jaden remained focused on his solo training. He was determined to improve, to become so good that no one could ignore his talent. The rejection had hurt, but it had also awakened something in Jaden. A fierce determination, a burning desire to prove himself. As he practiced, alone on that sun-baked court, Jaden felt himself growing stronger, faster, better. He wasn't just playing basketball anymore. He was forging himself into the player he knew he could be. As summer progressed, Jaden continued his relentless practice routine. One morning, while catching his breath after a particularly intense drill, he noticed a newspaper stand near the court. Curiosity piqued. He wandered over to take a look. The front page of the local sports section made his heart sink. There, in bold print, was a headline praising the rising stars of youth basketball. Jaden's eyes scanned the article, recognizing the names and faces of the white athletes who had been chosen at the tryouts. His hands trembled slightly as he read about their natural talent and promising futures. The words stung, reminding him of the day his own abilities had been overlooked. For a moment, the familiar feeling of injustice washed over him. But as Jaden stood there, basketball tucked under his arm, something shifted inside him. Instead of letting bitterness take root, he felt a new determination grow. He looked at the smiling faces in the newspaper and made a silent promise to himself. One day, he thought, my name will be in those headlines, not because of how I look, but because of how I play. With renewed focus, Jaden returned to the court. Each dribble, each shot, each sprint now had a greater purpose. He wasn't just playing to improve anymore, he was playing to prove a point. To show the world that talent knows no color. As he practiced, Jaden imagined future headlines. He could almost see his name in print, his photo alongside stories of his achievements. It didn't matter how long it took or how hard he had to work. Jaden was determined to earn that recognition. The sun beat down on the court, but Jaden barely noticed the heat. He was too focused on his goal. With each successful shot, each perfect pass against imaginary teammates, he was one step closer to his dream. Every day without fail, Jaden made his way to the local basketball court. Rain or shine, he was there, his determination unwavering. The familiar sound of the ball bouncing against the concrete became a constant rhythm in the neighborhood. Jaden's focus was laser sharp. He spent countless hours perfecting his shooting form. With each attempt, he analyzed his stance, the arc of the ball, and the follow-through of his wrist. Missed shots didn't discourage him. Instead, they fueled his desire to improve. As weeks passed, Jaden's dedication began to catch the eye of the neighborhood kids. They'd watch from the sidelines, amazed at his relentless practice. Some days, Jaden would arrive at dawn, the sound of his dribbling echoing through the quiet streets. Other days, he'd stay until dusk, the streetlights flickering on as he sank his final shots. His peers at school started to notice the change in Jaden. During recess, they'd see him practicing his ball-handling skills instead of joining in their games. At lunch, he'd be poring over basketball strategy books, absorbing every bit of knowledge he could. "Hey, Jaden," his classmate Mike called out one day. "Want to join our pickup game?" Jaden looked up, considering the offer. "Thanks, but I've got to work on my free throws," he replied with a smile. Mike shook his head in amazement. "Man, you're always practicing. You must really love basketball." Jaden nodded, his eyes shining with passion. "I do. And one day, I'm going to be the best." As word spread about Jaden's commitment, more kids started showing up at the court to watch him practice. They marveled at his improving skills, the way he moved with growing confidence and precision. Some days, Jaden would demonstrate a particularly difficult move, and the onlookers would burst into spontaneous applause. But Jaden never let it go to his head. He'd simply nod, acknowledge their support with a quick smile, and get right back to work. His dedication was inspiring. Soon, other kids were asking Jaden for tips, wanting to know his secret. But there was no secret, just hard work, determination, and an unshakable belief in himself. As the years passed, Jaden's dedication never wavered. His daily routine of intense practice became as natural as breathing. With high school on the horizon, the upcoming tryouts loomed large in his mind. But Jaden wasn't afraid. He was ready. Every morning, Jaden woke up before the sun rose. He laced up his worn-out sneakers, grabbed his basketball, and headed to the court. The cool morning air nipped at his skin, but he barely noticed. His mind was focused on one thing: being the best he could be. Jaden's skills had grown tremendously. His shooting was more accurate, his dribbling more controlled, and his speed on the court was impressive. He could now sink free throws with his eyes closed and execute complex plays with ease. As the tryout date drew nearer, Jaden felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. He remembered the sting of rejection from years ago, but he pushed those thoughts aside. This time would be different. He had worked too hard to be overlooked again. "You've got this, son," his father said one evening, noticing the determined look in Jaden's eyes. "No matter what happens, we're proud of you." Jaden nodded, grateful for his parents' unwavering support. Their belief in him had been a constant source of strength through the years. In the final weeks before the tryout, Jaden intensified his training. He studied game strategies, worked on his endurance, and even visualized himself performing well during the tryout. Nothing was left to chance. The night before the big day, Jaden lay in bed, his heart racing with anticipation. He took deep breaths, calming himself. "I'm ready," he whispered to himself. "I've done everything I can. Tomorrow, I'll show them what I'm made of." As he drifted off to sleep, Jaden felt a sense of peace wash over him. He knew that no matter the outcome, he had already achieved something remarkable. He had turned disappointment into determination, rejection into resilience. Tomorrow would be his chance to shine, and he was prepared to give it his all. The day of the high school tryouts finally arrived. Jaden woke up early, his stomach a bundle of nerves. He took a deep breath, reminding himself of all the hard work he'd put in over the years. This was his moment to shine. As Jaden walked into the unfamiliar gym, the squeak of sneakers and the rhythmic bounce of basketballs filled the air. He scanned the crowd, noticing a diverse group of hopeful players warming up. This wasn't the same school that had rejected him years ago, and Jaden felt a glimmer of hope. The coaches called everyone to attention, explaining the tryout process. Jaden listened intently, his heart pounding in his chest. As they began with drills, he felt a familiar twinge of anxiety creeping in. But Jaden took a deep breath and pushed it aside, focusing on the task at hand. During the first drill, Jaden's agility shone through. He weaved through the cones with lightning speed, leaving others in awe. His dribbling was precise and controlled, drawing approving nods from the coaches. Next came the shooting drills. Jaden's countless hours of practice paid off as he sank shot after shot. His form was perfect, his release smooth. Even when fatigue began to set in, Jaden pushed himself harder, determined to give his absolute best. As the scrimmage portion of the tryout began, Jaden felt a surge of confidence. This was where he could truly showcase his skills. From the moment the ball was tipped, Jaden was everywhere on the court. He anticipated passes, made smart defensive plays, and set up his teammates for easy baskets. Jaden's court vision was impeccable. He seemed to know where every player was at all times, making precise passes that left both teammates and coaches impressed. When he had the ball, he moved with grace and purpose, easily outmaneuvering defenders. In one breathtaking moment, Jaden received a pass at the three-point line. Without hesitation, he leapt into the air, releasing the ball with perfect form. The gym fell silent as the ball arced through the air, swishing through the net with a satisfying sound. The other players erupted in cheers, and even the coaches couldn't hide their smiles. As the tryout came to an end, Jaden was breathless but exhilarated. He had left everything on the court, showcasing years of dedication and hard work. The impressed looks on the faces of the coaches and other players told him that his performance had been nothing short of incredible. As the tryout came to an end, Coach Williams stood at the sidelines, his eyes fixed on Jaden. The seasoned coach had seen countless young players over the years, but there was something different about this boy, a spark of raw talent that couldn't be ignored. Coach Williams approached Jaden as the other players began to file out of the gym. "Jaden, isn't it?" he asked, his voice warm and encouraging. Jaden nodded, his heart racing. "Yes, sir," he replied, trying to keep his voice steady. "I've been watching you today," Coach Williams said, a smile spreading across his face. "I've got to say I'm impressed. Your skill, your dedication, it's clear you've put in the work." Jaden felt a surge of hope. Could this be the moment he'd been waiting for? Coach Williams continued, "I've seen a lot of talented players in my time, but what you've shown today is something special. Your court vision, your teamwork, your ability to read the game. It's extraordinary for someone your age." Jaden's eyes widened, hardly daring to believe what he was hearing. "I'd like to offer you a spot on the varsity team," Coach Williams said, his voice firm and confident. "You've earned it, Jaden. Your hard work and talent deserve to be recognized." Tears welled up in Jaden's eyes as the words sank in. After years of rejection and doubt, he was finally being given the chance he knew he deserved. All those early mornings, all those long hours on the court, they had finally paid off. "Thank you, Coach," Jaden managed to say, his voice thick with emotion. "I won't let you down." Coach Williams placed a hand on Jaden's shoulder. "I know you won't, son. Welcome to the team." As Jaden left the gym that day, he felt a weight lift off his shoulders. He had been seen, truly seen, for the player he was. The road ahead would be challenging, but Jaden knew he was ready. He had been given his chance and he was determined to make the most of it. As the weeks flew by, Jaden's presence on the varsity team became more and more impactful. His dedication and skill shone through in every practice and game. Coach Williams had made the right call, and Jaden was determined to prove it with every chance he got. During their first game of the season, Jaden's teammates were nervous. They were up against a tough opponent, known for their aggressive defense. But as soon as Jaden stepped onto the court, a calm seemed to settle over the team. With lightning-fast moves and pinpoint accuracy, Jaden weaved through the opposing team's defense. He set up play after play, creating opportunities for his teammates to score. When the final buzzer sounded, Jaden's team had won by a comfortable margin. As the weeks passed, word began to spread about the talented young player who was turning heads at every game. Local sports fans started showing up just to see Jaden play. They marveled at his speed, his agility, and his ability to read the game like a seasoned pro. Jaden's teammates, who had initially been unsure about the newcomer, now looked to him for leadership on the court. They trusted his judgment and relied on his skills to pull them through tight spots. "Man, Jaden, you're something else," his teammate Marcus said after a particularly tough game. "I don't know where we'd be without you." Jaden smiled, feeling a warmth spread through his chest. He was finally being recognized for his talent, just as he'd always dreamed. But more than that, he was part of a team that valued him. As the season progressed, Jaden's school team climbed the rankings. They were winning more games than they had in years, and much of it was thanks to Jaden's contributions. Local newspapers began to take notice, with headlines praising the young star who was changing the face of high school basketball in the area. As the basketball season came to a close, Jaden's impact on the team was undeniable. His speed, skill, and leadership had transformed the once struggling varsity squad into a formidable force. The team's incredible turnaround didn't go unnoticed, and when the time came for the annual sports award ceremony, Jaden's name was on everyone's lips. The night of the ceremony arrived, and Jaden sat nervously among his teammates. his parents beaming proudly from the audience. As the announcer took the stage, a hush fell over the crowd. And now for the Rookie of the Year award, the announcer's voice boomed through the speakers. This year's recipient has shown exceptional skill, sportsmanship, and leadership both on and off the court. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in congratulating Jaden Rodriguez. The room erupted in applause as Jaden, stunned, made his way to the stage. His teammates cheered loudly, patting him on the back as he passed. As he accepted the trophy, Jaden's mind flashed back to all those early mornings on the court, all the hours of practice and the disappointment of that first rejection. "Thank you," Jaden said softly into the microphone, his voice thick with emotion. "This means so much to me. I couldn't have done it without my teammates, my coach, and my family." As he stepped off the stage, trophy in hand, Jaden was engulfed in a sea of congratulations. His parents rushed to embrace him, tears of joy in their eyes. "We're so proud of you, son," his father said, his voice cracking slightly. Jaden smiled, but even in this moment of triumph, he remained grounded. He knew that this award, while a significant milestone, was just the beginning. There was still so much more to achieve, so much more to prove. As the excitement of the evening began to wind down, Jaden found a quiet moment to reflect. He looked at the trophy in his hands, a symbol of how far he'd come. But in his heart, he knew that his journey in basketball was far from over. This was just the first step on a long road ahead. As the leaves began to turn and a crisp autumn chill filled the air, the new basketball season arrived. Jaden, now a sophomore, approached the upcoming games with a mix of excitement and determination. His Rookie of the Year trophy sat proudly on his shelf at home, but Jaden knew that last year's success didn't guarantee anything for the future. The first practice of the season was intense. Coach Williams had the team running drills and scrimmages for hours, pushing them to their limits. Jaden, despite his previous accolades, didn't slack off for a second. He sprinted harder, jumped higher, and passed more accurately than ever before. As the weeks progressed, the team faced tougher opponents. Schools from across the state, some with long histories of basketball excellence, now saw Jaden's team as a worthy challenger. The games were grueling, and not every match ended in victory. As the season progressed, Jaden and his team faced their toughest challenge yet, the state semifinals. The gymnasium buzzed with excitement as fans packed the bleachers. Jaden's heart raced as he stepped onto the court, knowing that this game could make or break their season. From the start, the opposing team proved to be formidable opponents. They matched Jaden's team point for point, keeping the score tight throughout the first half. Jaden pushed himself harder than ever, his muscles burning with each sprint down the court. As the final quarter began, Jaden's team was down by 5 points. The pressure mounted, and Jaden felt the weight of his team's hopes on his shoulders. With just seconds left on the clock, Jaden had the ball. He dribbled, dodged a defender, and leaped for a three-pointer that could tie the game. The ball left his fingers arcing through the air. Time seemed to slow as everyone watched its trajectory. But instead of swishing through the net, it bounced off the rim. The buzzer sounded, signaling the end of the game and their season. Jaden stood frozen, staring at the hoop in disbelief. His teammates patted his back, trying to console him, but he barely felt their touch. The loss hit him like a physical blow, leaving him stunned and hollow. In the locker room, Jaden sat alone, his head hanging low. Doubt crept into his mind, whispering that maybe he wasn't as good as he thought. Maybe all his hard work had been for nothing. Frustration bubbled up inside him, and he slammed his fist against the locker. Coach Williams found him there, still in his jersey, looking defeated. The coach sat down next to Jaden, his presence a comforting silence for a few moments. "Jaden," Coach Williams finally said, his voice gentle but firm, "I know this loss hurts, but remember, even the greatest players in history have faced defeat." Jaden looked up, his eyes red-rimmed. "But coach, I let everyone down. I should have made that shot." Coach Williams shook his head. "You didn't let anyone down, son. You played your heart out. Losses are part of the process. They're not failures. They're opportunities to learn and grow." From that moment on, Coach Williams took Jaden under his wing. He spent extra time with Jaden after practice, working on advanced techniques and strategies. But it wasn't just about basketball. Coach Williams also talked to Jaden about life, sharing wisdom gained from years of experience both on and off the court. "Basketball is more than just a game, Jaden," Coach Williams would often say. "It's about teamwork, perseverance, and character. These are lessons that will serve you well long after you've hung up your jersey." Jaden's father found him sitting on the front porch steps that evening, still lost in thought about the game. Mr. Rodriguez sat down next to his son, placing a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Tough loss today, huh?" he asked softly. Jaden nodded, his eyes fixed on the ground. "I just feel like I let everyone down, Dad. Maybe I'm not cut out for this after all." Mr. Rodriguez took a deep breath and looked out at the quiet street. "You know, son, when I was about your age, I faced a similar challenge. I was trying to get my first job at the local grocery store. I thought I had it in the bag, but they chose someone else." Jaden looked up, surprised. His father had never shared this story before. "I felt just like you do now," Mr. Rodriguez continued. "But instead of giving up, I used that disappointment to fuel my determination. I worked on my skills, improved my resume, and kept trying. It took 3 more attempts, but I finally got a job that was even better than the first one I applied for." As his father spoke, Jaden felt a small spark of hope ignite within him. He listened intently as his dad shared more stories of setbacks and comebacks, each one reinforcing the same message. Success often comes after failure. "The thing is, Jaden," Mr. Rodriguez said, looking his son in the eyes, "setbacks aren't the end of the road. They're just bumps along the way. Every great player, every successful person has faced defeats. It's how you respond to those defeats that defines you." Jaden nodded slowly, feeling the weight of defeat lifting from his shoulders. His father's words resonated deeply, reminding him of all the obstacles he'd already overcome. "You're right, Dad," Jaden said, a new determination in his voice. "I can't let one loss stop me. I've worked too hard to give up now." Mr. Rodriguez smiled, pride shining in his eyes. "That's my boy. Remember, every setback is just a setup for a comeback." Inspired by his father's words, Jaden felt his passion for basketball reignite. He stood up, a familiar fire burning in his eyes. "I'm going to train harder than ever," he declared. "Next season, we're going all the way to the championship." Over the next year, Jaden's dedication to basketball bore fruit in ways he had only dreamed of. Every game became a showcase of his talent, determination, and leadership. His name echoed through the gymnasium as he scored point after point, made impossible passes, and defended with unmatched intensity. Word of Jaden's exceptional skills spread quickly through local basketball circles. Fans from other schools would come just to watch him play, marveling at his agility and court awareness. Whispers of future star followed him wherever he went. But Jaden remained humble, always crediting his teammates and Coach Williams for his success. As the season progressed, Jaden's team embarked on an impressive winning streak. Game after game, they outplayed their opponents, with Jaden often leading the scoreboard. The team's chemistry was undeniable, and Jaden's ability to elevate his teammates' performance was a key factor in their success. Local newspapers began featuring articles about the rising star and his unstoppable team. Headlines like, "Rodriguez leads Tigers to another victory," became a common sight. Jaden's parents proudly collected every clipping, creating a scrapbook of their son's achievements. With each victory, the team inched closer to their ultimate goal, the regional championship. The excitement in the school was palpable. Students wore team colors every day, and pep rallies became more frequent and spirited. Through it all, Jaden remained focused, never letting the growing attention distract him from his love for the game and his commitment to improvement. As the final games of the regular season approached, it became clear that Jaden's team was a top contender for the regional championship. Their consistent performance had earned them a prime position in the rankings, and anticipation for the upcoming tournament reached fever pitch. As the regional championship drew near, Jaden's determination reached new heights. The prospect of winning the MVP award fueled his already intense passion for the game. He knew that this tournament could be a defining moment in his basketball career, and he was determined to make the most of it. Every day after school, Jaden stayed behind in the gym, long after his teammates had gone home. He worked tirelessly on his jump shot, perfecting his form and accuracy. The rhythmic sound of the ball swishing through the net echoed in the empty gymnasium, a testament to his unwavering focus. Coach Williams noticed Jaden's extra efforts and offered to stay late to help him train. Together, they worked on advanced techniques and strategies that would give Jaden an edge in the upcoming tournament. The coach's belief in Jaden's potential only strengthened the young player's resolve. Jaden's dedication didn't go unnoticed by his teammates. Inspired by their star player's commitment, they too began putting in extra hours. Soon, the entire team was staying after practice, working on their skills and building their stamina. The gym buzzed with energy as they ran drills, practiced plays, and encouraged each other. As the tournament approached, the team's unity grew stronger. They held study sessions to go over game footage of their opponents, analyzing strengths and weaknesses. Jaden often led these sessions, sharing insights he had gained from his countless hours of practice and study. The excitement in the school reached a fever pitch. Banners adorned the hallways, and students wore team colors with pride. Jaden felt the weight of their expectations, but instead of feeling pressured, he felt motivated. He channeled the school's energy into his preparations, using it to push himself even harder. In the locker room before their first tournament game, Jaden gathered his teammates around him. With a voice filled with passion and determination, he reminded them of how far they had come and how much they had grown as a team. His words ignited a fire in each of them, and they stepped onto the court ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The regional tournament kicked off with a buzz of excitement in the air. Jaden and his team stepped onto the court for their first game, their hearts pounding with anticipation. As the whistle blew, Jaden's focus sharpened and he sprang into action. From the very first play, it was clear that Jaden was operating on a different level. His movements were fluid and precise, his passes laser accurate. He weaved through defenders like they were standing still, finding impossible angles to make shots that left the crowd gasping in awe. As the tournament progressed, Jaden's team advanced through the rounds with impressive wins. Each game, Jaden's performance seemed to reach new heights. His teammates rallied around him, feeding off his energy and determination. They worked together seamlessly, with Jaden orchestrating their plays like a seasoned conductor. Spectators began to take notice of the young star. Whispers spread through the stands about the incredible talent on display. Even opposing coaches were seen frantically adjusting their strategies to try and contain Jaden's impact on the game. But it wasn't just Jaden's skill that drew attention. His leadership on the court was undeniable. During timeouts, he gathered his teammates, offering words of encouragement and strategic advice. When tensions ran high, Jaden's calm demeanor steadied the team. His unwavering belief in his teammates inspired them to push beyond their limits. As the tournament reached its later stages, Jaden became the player that everyone, both opponents and spectators, watched closely. Cameras followed his every move, and reporters eagerly waited to catch a word with him after each game. Despite the growing attention, Jaden remained humble and focused on the team's success. Opposing teams began to design their entire game plans around stopping Jaden. They threw double teams at him, tried to deny him the ball, and did everything they could to slow him down. But Jaden's basketball IQ shone through. He adapted to these tactics, using the extra attention to create opportunities for his teammates. The semifinal game was a nail-biter from start to finish. The packed gymnasium buzzed with nervous energy as Jaden's team faced their toughest opponent yet. With only minutes left on the clock, the score was tied, and the pressure was mounting. Jaden took a deep breath, wiping the sweat from his brow. He knew this was his moment to shine. As the ball was inbounded, Jaden called for a play they had practiced countless times. His teammates responded instantly, moving into position. With lightning-fast reflexes, Jaden intercepted a pass from the opposing team. He dribbled down the court, weaving through defenders like a master. Just as it seemed he would take the shot, he made a no-look pass to his teammate in the corner. The crowd held its breath as the ball soared through the air and swished through the net. The gymnasium erupted in cheers. But Jaden wasn't done yet. On the next play, he made a spectacular block, denying the other team a crucial basket. As the final seconds ticked away, Jaden sank 2 free throws with ice-cold precision, sealing their victory. The final buzzer sounded, and the crowd went wild. Jaden's teammates rushed to him, lifting him onto their shoulders in celebration. They had done it. They were going to the championship game. As news of their win spread, the entire school was abuzz with excitement. Jaden couldn't walk down the hallway without being congratulated by students and teachers alike. Everyone believed they could win the championship, and Jaden felt the weight of their expectations on his shoulders. But instead of letting the pressure overwhelm him, Jaden channeled it into motivation. He spent extra hours in the gym, fine-tuning his skills and working on new plays with his team. The thought of bringing home the championship trophy for his school, his team, and everyone who had believed in him fueled his determination. The day of the regional championship final arrived, and the atmosphere was electric. The gymnasium was packed to the rafters, with fans from both schools creating a deafening roar. Jaden felt a mix of nerves and excitement as he stepped onto the court, his teammates by his side. From the moment the game began, it was clear that Jaden was in a league of his own. He moved with grace and purpose, his every action deliberate and precise. Within minutes, he had scored the first points of the game with a breathtaking three-pointer that silenced the opposing team's fans. As the game progressed, Jaden's performance only got better. He seemed to be everywhere at once, stealing balls, making impossible passes, and sinking shot after shot. His teammates fed off his energy, playing with a level of intensity that matched his own. The opposing team tried everything to stop Jaden, but he was unstoppable. Even when they double-teamed him, he found ways to create opportunities for his teammates. His leadership on the court was undeniable, calling plays and encouraging his team even when they fell behind briefly in the third quarter. In the final minutes of the game, with the score closed, Jaden took control. He scored 8 points in rapid succession, including a spectacular alley-oop that brought the crowd to its feet. As the final seconds ticked away, Jaden made a steal and raced down the court for a game-sealing dunk. The buzzer sounded and the gymnasium erupted. Jaden's team had won the regional championship. His teammates mobbed him on the court, their faces beaming with joy and admiration. Coach Williams hugged Jaden tightly, tears in his eyes as he told him how proud he was. As the celebration continued, the announcer's voice boomed over the speakers. And now, the moment we've all been waiting for. The most valuable player of this year's regional championship is Jaden. The crowd's cheers grew even louder as Jaden stepped forward to receive his MVP trophy. His hands shook slightly as he grasped the shiny award, a symbol of all his hard work and perseverance. As he held it high, Jaden's eyes scanned the crowd, finding his parents who were cheering and crying with pride. In the days following the regional championship, Jaden's incredible performance began to attract attention far beyond his local community. News of his remarkable journey from rejection to MVP spread like wildfire across social media platforms and sports news channels. One evening, as Jaden was finishing his homework, his phone buzzed with an unexpected call. It was his coach, sounding more excited than Jaden had ever heard him. "Jaden, you won't believe this," Coach Williams said, his voice brimming with enthusiasm. "A major sports brand has been watching you. They want to make you their youngest ever ambassador for a new national campaign." Jaden's heart raced as Coach Williams explained the details. The brand wanted Jaden to be the face of their "Don't Let Them Tell You No" campaign, which aimed to inspire young athletes to persevere in the face of adversity. The next day, Jaden and his parents met with representatives from the sports brand. They shared their vision for the campaign, explaining how Jaden's story of overcoming racial bias and rejection perfectly embodied their message. "We believe your journey can inspire countless young athletes who face similar challenges," the brand representative said, smiling warmly at Jaden. "Your resilience and determination are exactly what we want to showcase." Jaden felt a mix of excitement and disbelief. He thought about all the long hours of practice, the disappointments, and the moments of self-doubt. Now, his story could help others push through their own struggles. As Jaden signed the contract, becoming the youngest ambassador in the brand's history, he felt a sense of responsibility settling on his shoulders. He wasn't just playing for himself anymore. He was becoming a symbol of hope for kids everywhere who had been told no because of who they were. The campaign launched with a powerful commercial featuring Jaden's story. It showed his early rejection, his relentless practice sessions, and his triumphant MVP moment. The tagline, "Don't let them tell you no," flashed across the screen as Jaden's voice narrated his journey, making him the face of the national campaign. As Jaden's face began appearing on billboards and in commercials across the nation, his family was filled with an overwhelming sense of pride. They gathered in their living room, watching in awe as their son's story unfolded on the television screen. Jaden's mother, tears glistening in her eyes, reached out to squeeze her husband's hand. "Can you believe it?" she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "Our boy, inspiring millions." His father nodded, a lump in his throat. He remembered the countless nights he'd spent reassuring Jaden, telling him to keep pushing forward. Now, here was their son, a beacon of hope for young athletes everywhere. Jaden's younger sister bounced excitedly on the couch. "That's my brother," she exclaimed, pointing at the screen. "He's famous now." As for Jaden, he found himself in a whirlwind of emotions. Seeing his face on giant billboards and hearing his voice on national commercials was surreal. He often caught himself staring up at his own image, larger than life, with the words "Don't let them tell you no" emblazoned beside him. During quiet moments, Jaden reflected on how far he'd come. He thought back to that first tryout, where he'd been overlooked and ignored. The pain of that rejection was still there, a dull ache that had once threatened to crush his dreams. But now it served as a powerful reminder of his journey. He remembered the long hours spent on the court, practicing until his muscles ached and sweat dripped from his brow. He thought about the times he'd wanted to give up, when the road seemed too long and the obstacles too great. But he'd persevered, driven by a determination that refused to be silenced. Now, as he watched kids wearing shoes with his name on them, and heard stories of young athletes finding inspiration in his journey, Jaden felt a deep sense of responsibility. He knew that his story was no longer just his own. It belonged to every kid who had ever been told they weren't good enough, that they didn't belong. As the "Don't Let Them Tell You No" campaign launched, Jaden found himself thrust into a world he'd only dreamed about. The pinnacle of this whirlwind was an invitation to speak at a national gala, an event that brought together the biggest names in sports. On the night of the gala, Jaden stood before the mirror in his hotel room, adjusting his tie with trembling hands. He took a deep breath, trying to calm his nerves. The boy who once practiced alone on a neighborhood court was about to address some of the most influential figures in the sports world. As he entered the grand ballroom, Jaden's eyes widened. The room sparkled with chandeliers, and familiar faces from TV and magazines filled the space. NBA stars, Olympic champions, and legendary coaches mingled, their conversations creating a buzz of excitement. Jaden's mother squeezed his hand. "You've got this, baby," she whispered, her eyes shining with pride. As he made his way through the crowd, Jaden overheard snippets of conversation about himself. "Did you hear about that kid from Can You Believe His Story?" The surreal nature of the moment wasn't lost on him. When it was time for his speech, Jaden approached the podium. The room fell silent, all eyes on him. He looked out at the sea of faces, some of them his childhood heroes, and for a moment, he felt that old doubt creeping in. But then he remembered. He remembered the long hours of practice, the disappointment of rejection, and the fire that kept him going. He remembered every kid who'd ever been told they weren't good enough. Jaden took a deep breath and began to speak. His voice, at first soft, grew stronger with each word. He shared his story, the pain of being overlooked, the determination that fueled his countless hours of practice, and the joy of finally proving himself. As he spoke, Jaden saw heads nodding in understanding. He saw smiles of encouragement and even a few teary eyes. In that moment, he realized that his journey wasn't just his own anymore. It belonged to everyone who had ever faced adversity and chose to keep fighting. As Jaden stood at the podium, his heart raced. He looked out at the sea of faces, some of them his childhood heroes, and took a deep breath. The room fell silent, waiting for him to begin. "When I was 10 years old," Jaden started, his voice soft but clear, "I went to a basketball tryout. I played my heart out that day, giving it everything I had. But when the names were called, mine wasn't on the list. He paused, remembering the pain of that moment. I watched as players who couldn't dribble as well or shoot as accurately were chosen over me. And I knew why. It wasn't about skill. It was about the color of my skin. A hush fell over the room. Jaden could see the shock and sympathy in the eyes of his audience. That day could have broken me, he continued, his voice growing stronger. But instead, it lit a fire inside me. Every morning before school, I was on the court. Every evening after dinner, I was practicing my shots. I told myself that one day they wouldn't be able to ignore my talent. Jaden's words resonated through the ballroom. He saw nods of understanding, even from some of the biggest names in sports. There were times I wanted to give up, Jaden admitted. Times when the unfairness of it all felt too heavy. But every time I felt like quitting, I remembered that little boy who was told he wasn't good enough. And I kept going. His voice cracked slightly, but he pushed on. To every kid out there who's been overlooked, to everyone who's been told they can't do something because of how they look or where they come from, I want you to know this. Don't let them tell you no. Your dreams are valid. Your talent is real. And if you work hard enough, they won't be able to ignore you forever. As Jaden finished his speech, the room erupted in applause. He saw tears in the eyes of hardened athletes and seasoned coaches. His message of resilience in the face of adversity had struck a chord with everyone present. As Jaden stepped down from the podium, the room buzzed with excitement and admiration. People crowded around him, eager to shake his hand and offer words of praise. Among the sea of faces, Jaden spotted a familiar group. The White Scouts who had overlooked him years ago at that fateful tryout. The Scouts approached Jaden, their faces a mix of regret and hope. One of them, a tall man with graying hair, stepped forward. "Jaden," he said, his voice filled with awe, "we can't begin to express how sorry we are for what happened back then. Your talent is undeniable, and we were blind not to see it." Another Scout chimed in, "We'd like to make it right. Our team would be honored to have you join us. We can offer you a spot right away." Jaden looked at them, his mind flashing back to that day when his dreams had been crushed. He felt a whirlwind of emotions, anger, sadness, and surprisingly, a sense of peace. He took a deep breath and smiled softly. "Thank you for your offer," Jaden said, his voice calm and steady. "I appreciate your apology and the opportunity, but I have to decline." The Scouts looked shocked, exchanging glances of disbelief. "But why?" one of them asked, confusion evident in his voice. Jaden's eyes scanned the room, landing on Coach Williams, who stood nearby with a proud smile on his face. He then thought of his parents, his teammates, and all those who had believed in him when others didn't. "This journey," Jaden explained, "has been about more than just joining a team. It's about standing by those who believed in me from the start. Coach Williams gave me a chance when no one else would. My current team supported me through thick and thin. They're my family now." He paused, letting his words sink in. "I'm grateful for your offer, but my loyalty lies with those who saw my potential, even when it wasn't convenient or popular to do so." The Scouts nodded, a mix of disappointment and respect in their eyes. They understood that Jaden's decision was about more than just basketball. It was about integrity and gratitude. As Jaden's words hung in the air, a hush fell over the crowd. The Scouts stood there, visibly humbled by his response. Their faces showed a mix of regret and newfound respect for the young man before them. One of the Scouts, his voice thick with emotion, said, "Jaden, you've taught us a valuable lesson today. Your integrity is truly inspiring." The audience around them murmured in agreement. People exchanged glances of admiration, clearly moved by Jaden's display of loyalty and character. A woman in the front row wiped a tear from her eye, touched by the young athlete's words. Coach Williams stepped forward, placing a proud hand on Jaden's shoulder. The coach's eyes shone with pride as he looked at the young man he had mentored. "This is why Jaden is more than just a great player," he said to those nearby. "He's a great person." As word of Jaden's decision spread through the gala, more people gathered around him. They weren't just impressed by his basketball skills anymore. They were in awe of his character. A young boy pushed through the crowd, looking up at Jaden with wide eyes. "Mr. Jaden," the boy said shyly, "when I grow up, I want to be just like you." Jaden knelt down to the boy's level, his face softening into a gentle smile. "Just be the best version of yourself," he said kindly. "That's all any of us can do." The crowd's admiration for Jaden grew even stronger. They saw in him not just a talented athlete, but a role model of integrity and perseverance. His journey from rejection to success, and now his display of unwavering loyalty, resonated deeply with everyone present. As the evening continued, people approached Jaden to share how his story had touched them. Many spoke of their own struggles with bias and rejection, finding hope in Jaden's perseverance. His tale of overcoming adversity and staying true to his values struck a chord with people from all walks of life. As Jaden's star continued to rise, he never forgot the challenges he had faced. His experiences as a young black athlete who had been overlooked due to racial bias fueled his desire to make a difference. He knew that there were countless other talented kids out there facing similar struggles, and he was determined to use his newfound platform to help them. Jaden reached out to several organizations that promoted equality in sports. He partnered with Equal Play, a nonprofit dedicated to ensuring fair opportunities for all young athletes, regardless of their race or background. Together, they launched a series of basketball camps across the country, focusing on underserved communities. At these camps, Jaden shared his story with the young participants. He talked about the pain of rejection and the power of perseverance. His words resonated deeply with the kids, many of whom had faced similar challenges. Jaden's presence alone was inspiring, but his message of hope and determination left a lasting impact. "Remember," Jaden would tell the young athletes, "your talent is real. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. Keep working hard, and your time will come." Jaden also used his influence to push for change within the sports industry itself. He spoke at conferences and meetings with sports officials, advocating for more diverse scouting practices and fairer evaluation processes. His passionate speeches and personal experiences opened many eyes to the ongoing issues of racial bias in youth sports. As part of his efforts, Jaden helped create a mentorship program that paired promising young athletes from underrepresented backgrounds with successful sports professionals. He believed that having role models who looked like them and understood their struggles could make a world of difference for these kids. Through his advocacy work, Jaden became more than just a basketball star. He became a symbol of hope and a catalyst for change in the world of sports. His efforts were making a real difference, ensuring that talent was recognized and nurtured regardless of race or background. Back at school, Jaden's teammates couldn't stop talking about their MVP and newly minted brand ambassador. The hallways buzzed with excitement as students shared stories of Jaden's incredible journey from rejection to national recognition. During practice, younger players watched Jaden with awe, hanging on his every word and movement. They saw in him not just a talented athlete, but a symbol of what was possible when you refused to give up on your dreams. "Hey Jaden, can you show me how to do that crossover again?" a freshman named Tyler asked eagerly. Jaden smiled warmly. "Sure thing, Tyler, let's work on it together." Despite his growing fame, Jaden remained the same humble, hard-working player his teammates had always known. He arrived early to practice, stayed late to help others, and never shied away from the toughest drills. Coach Williams watched proudly as Jaden mentored his younger teammates. "You're setting a great example, Jaden," he said one day after practice. "Your story is inspiring these kids in ways you can't even imagine." Jaden nodded thoughtfully. "I just want them to know that they can overcome anything if they believe in themselves and keep working hard." In class, teachers noticed a change too. Students who had never shown much interest in their studies were now talking about goals and perseverance. Jaden's story had sparked something in them, a belief that with hard work and determination, they could achieve great things too. During lunch breaks, Jaden often found himself surrounded by younger students asking for advice. He always made time for them, sharing his experiences and encouraging them to pursue their passions, whatever they might be. "It's not just about basketball," he'd tell them. "It's about finding what you love and giving it your all, no matter what obstacles you face." As the school year progressed, Jaden's impact on the school community became increasingly evident. The principal even invited him to speak at a school assembly, where Jaden shared his story of overcoming bias and rejection. Throughout it all, Jaden remained grounded. He knew that his journey was far from over, and that each day brought new challenges and opportunities for growth. He approached each practice, each game, and each day with the same determination that had brought him this far. As the basketball season progressed, Jaden continued to excel on his school's team. His performances on the court were nothing short of spectacular, drawing larger crowds to each game. Despite his rising fame, Jaden remained focused on his love for the sport and his commitment to his team. Every morning before the sun peeked over the horizon, Jaden was already at the gym. The rhythmic bounce of the ball echoed through the empty court as he practiced his drills. He pushed himself harder with each passing day, always striving to improve. "You're here early again," Coach Williams remarked one morning, a proud smile on his face. Jaden wiped the sweat from his brow. "Can't stop now, Coach. There's always room to get better." The coach nodded approvingly. "Just remember to pace yourself, son. It's a long season ahead." Jaden took those words to heart. He remembered the lessons he'd learned about balance and perseverance. While he continued to train rigorously, he also made sure to take time for rest and recovery. In the locker room, Jaden's teammates marveled at his dedication. "Man, how do you do it?" his friend Marcus asked. "All this attention, and you're still the first one at practice and the last one to leave." Jaden smiled, thinking back to those early days of rejection and doubt. "It's not about the attention," he said. "It's about loving the game and always striving to be better than I was yesterday." As his fame grew, Jaden found himself facing new challenges. Reporters waited after games for interviews, and fans asked for autographs wherever he went. But through it all, Jaden remained grounded, never forgetting the journey that had brought him here. During a particularly tough game, when the team was trailing by 10 points in the fourth quarter, Jaden gathered his teammates during a timeout. "Remember why we're here," he said, his voice steady and determined. "It's not about winning or losing. It's about giving our all, every single second we're on that court. We've worked too hard to give up now." As the school year drew to a close, Westbrook High buzzed with excitement. The gymnasium was packed with students, teachers, and parents, all eagerly awaiting the special assembly. Banners adorned the walls, celebrating the basketball team's victories and Jaden's achievements. Principal Harris stepped up to the microphone, her voice filled with pride. "Today we gather to honor an exceptional young man who has not only brought glory to our school, but has become an inspiration to us all. Please welcome to the stage, Jaden Rodriguez." The crowd erupted in thunderous applause as Jaden made his way to the podium. He looked out at the sea of faces, feeling a mix of humility and gratitude. Taking a deep breath, he began his speech. "Thank you all for being here today," Jaden started, his voice steady and clear. "When I first picked up a basketball, I never imagined I'd be standing here. My journey hasn't been easy, but it's taught me so much." He paused, thinking back to that first rejection. "There were times when I felt like giving up, when it seemed like the world was against me. But I learned that hard work and determination can overcome any obstacle." Jaden's eyes scanned the crowd, meeting the gazes of his teammates, his coach, and his family. Success isn't just about talent. It's about perseverance, about getting up every time you fall. It's about staying true to yourself, even when others doubt you. His words resonated through the gym, touching the hearts of everyone present. Each of you has a unique journey ahead. There will be challenges, there will be setbacks. But remember, your worth isn't determined by others. It's determined by your dedication, your integrity, and your willingness to keep pushing forward. Jaden's voice grew stronger, filled with conviction. "Never let anyone tell you that you can't achieve your dreams. Work hard, believe in yourself, and stay true to who you are. That's the recipe for success, both on and off the court." As Jaden concluded his speech, the gymnasium erupted in cheers and applause. Students rose to their feet, moved by his words. He could see tears in the eyes of his parents, pride radiating from their faces. With a humble smile, Jaden thanked the crowd one last time. He stepped away from the podium, ready to embrace whatever challenges and opportunities lay ahead in his journey as an inspirational figure and ambassador for perseverance. If you enjoyed the story of Jaden, I hand-picked this next story that will touch your heart. Please don't miss this one. Click here to watch it.